Okay, so 1 year ago, I sat down and recorded 4 interviews with Rebecca about her experience with the Wholesale Formula course and what it was like going through the Wholesale Formula. I had already been through the Wholesale Formula course. This was her first time through it, and her first time going through, trying to put the stuff that she learned into action. And I asked her some really cool questions. We have a 4-part series. It's all on YouTube. You can actually go to fulltimefba.com/TWF interview 1 to go see the first one. But if you've watched the first 4, or if you're just curious and you just like this topic of what we're talking about today, just stick around and watch this video. It's some good stuff. So I sat down and talked with you a year ago about like how things were going. Ish. Yes, a year ago ish. So bring us up to date. It is now, July of 2022. How are things going with your Amazon business, wholesale sourcing, putting stuff into action? How are things been going over the last year?
Well, it's kind of a loaded question because right now things are going a lot better than they were for me about, 7, 8, 9 months ago. Probably maybe even longer than that. Last fall, I kind of took a little bit of a break from sourcing because just some other stuff that was going on. I was just having just real talk. I was having like some really difficult times like in our family and with some stuff that was going on with the kids' school, and just really, having a lot of attention needing to be focused on some other areas in life. And so I kind of put the brakes on sourcing for a few months last fall. Just kind of took some time off. And that's one of the beautiful things about having an FBA business is that you're able to take a break from sourcing new inventory because you've already built up your inventory that's at the warehouses. We also already had accounts with other wholesale companies and some online arbitrage and retail arbitrage that we were doing during that time period that I didn't really need to continue sourcing daily for new wholesale accounts in order for us to be able to maintain our business. So there's that aspect of it, because it's like, you ask about like, last time I talked to you was a little over a year ago, so how are things going now? I don't feel like I have a full year of experience in doing wholesale formula type sourcing and running our FBA business that way at this point. But earlier in 2022, probably late January, I kind of was at a point where I'm like, okay, the new school year has started again. I'm feeling like I've got more bandwidth. I'm going to get back into doing wholesale formula sourcing because I had seen really good results with it earlier in 2021 when I first got started. The work that I was putting into it, I really felt like paid off. So I wanted to keep up with it. I'm fully committed to, because of what I've seen in your business too, doing that model of sourcing. But I knew that something needed to change. And so I made some changes to like my day in, day out procedure, still following the methods that I learned in the course, but I hired a VA, a virtual assistant, and that changed everything. So that's kind of where I am now, is that I am still on a regular daily basis seeing the results of doing the wholesale formula sourcing methods, the scouting methods that I learned in that course. But I'm not the one in our business who is doing every single bit of the work right now.
Yeah, and it's not me.
And it's not
either.
You. Yeah.
Yes.
You still have your accounts that you're doing and the things that you're doing for that part of our FBA business. We share an FBA account, but we more or less, have our own accounts that we manage within that.
Yeah, so I was still reordering items from my wholesale sources, and you were you found a VA.
Yes.
To do so.
Virtual assistant.
Yes.
VA.
Yes.
And that was life changing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Life changing.
It's one of those things that you don't realize how big of a change it can bring until you actually experience it yourself.
Yeah, because we've had a VA off and on doing different tasks for us for years now. We've had a couple of different VAs doing different things for us for years, but we've never had anybody who was full-time committed towards sourcing, scouting for wholesale accounts. We've had help doing certain aspects of our wholesale business, but not like doing the actual like full-time. That is what they're doing, is looking for new leads for us. So that was a big, huge change.
Yeah, so tell me about the change of like, we did have like a part-time person who we have do things every now and then, but what was it like mentally when you realized I have all these hours I need to fill with them to do some work? Like, what was that like, trying to figure out what they needed to do?
Yeah, so I would say part of the reason why I did not get a VA last year to work for me full time was that I was not convinced that I had enough work for a VA full time, because I thought, our business, our FBA business pays our bills. Like, we make a full time income. It has grown to a size that we're really comfortable with managing it, just the two of us. With, we've got an account manager, and we've got, some other people that are, prep center, and so we're not doing everything. We've got a lot of it outsourced, but like, we're not looking to grow huge. So I'm like, do we really need somebody sourcing full time? Because I wasn't sourcing full time. I was sourcing part time, and I was getting part time results. I was getting very limited results with it. And so going into hiring the VA, my big question was, is there going to be enough work for them to do that's not going to put us beyond the size of growth that we're looking for in our business, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
Like, we're not looking for unlimited growth in our FBA business. We're looking for like reasonable growth. We would like to continue to grow it and get more sales, but we're not looking to be like gazillionaire sellers on Amazon.
Right. Yeah.
So that was kind of my big hang up. And I took I did the VA Launchpad course within the wholesale formula genre, their whole system. I did that course, and that was really helpful. And I did another course that they have that's a part of a program, that the VA placement program that they have. They also have a very intense and very well done course that comes with that lays it all out. And once I did that, once I did both of those courses, I was like, okay, I think that we really do have enough, and we have enough work for this VA to do, and it's going to be hard for me to manage somebody, but because I've never like managed somebody full time. We've had, freelancers working for us that we give stuff here and there, but what is that going to look like for me on a day-to-day basis? So that was kind of my hang-up going into it, I think.
So, like,
did that answer your question?
I did, yes. So when you take a look at all the things that the VA does for us now, what are the things that you've outsourced to a VA? What are all the tasks that they're taking care of that we don't?
Yeah, so the main thing up front when I hired our particular VA, her name is Jen, so I won't just keep calling her the VA. So when we hired Jen, the main thing that I wanted to outsource was the scouting for new leads. And I thought, if she could just come up with new leads, I can handle the contacting of those leads, contacting the brands, and I could handle, other aspects of following up after those leads and whatnot. But I soon found out that not only was she amazing at scouting, but she was able to do more than just the scouting process for me, that she was able to take on some of those tasks of contacting the brands. And so like right now, she does every aspect of scouting. I'm not really involved at all. Once I got her trained and set up, and that was a process, that took a while, and it's a lot of work up front. I'm not going to like pretend like it's not. It is a lot of work up front to get it all set up and to train a VA. But then once I had her trained and like, this is how I want it done, this is the system we're going to use, this is the process we're going to go about doing things on a daily basis, she was able to take over doing that pretty quickly. And then I was able to like start gradually introducing in other tasks. So then from there, she's doing the research. Once she found leads, she was able to do the research to get the contact information for the brands. And then I was able to get her set up with managing the contacting of the brands themselves. And so she does all of our initial contacts for brands. And then she manages when those emails come, the responses for those contacts come back in. She manages all of that. And so she's able then, for some of those, she's able to respond back and forth with them for follow-up. Some of them she refers to me. It just depends. We've kind of got a system in place now. And so she manages this spreadsheet that has just a ton of information on it regarding our leads and where we are in the process of contacting them and where they are in responding. It's amazing, all of that she does. And then I've introduced slowly over time. She's been working with us, I would say, probably 3 months now, three and a half months, maybe longer than that because it's July now. So maybe 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
And so she's doing some other tasks too. I've been able to hand over some other tasks related to, we already have an account manager, so we don't really need anybody to handle reimbursements and returns and all of that, but she does handle like helping us with stock levels. I've got her running some reports for me to help me keep track of our sales so that we know when to do reorders. And then I have other admin tasks that she does for us too. I don't have her like doing any of my personal stuff yet. I would love to have a personal assistant, but she's mostly involved in doing those types of things related to wholesale sourcing. Yeah.
So when you said you had to train our VA, we got our VA through VA placement. So part of the thing about VA placement is that they're kind of trained a little bit about some parts of the wholesale sourcing aspect. So what parts was she already trained on and what parts did you have to train her on? So we get a good idea about, what VA placement does versus what type of input we need to have as the person who's leading the VA.
Yeah, so VA placement is amazing in that they vet these VAs that they're helping you to get matched up with are fully vetted, and they know they have all of the skills that they need as far as like computer skills and internet skills, research skills, those type of things, and then they train them on the wholesale formula methods. And there's a whole list of stuff that they're trained on, some of it that we don't even, I still have a list of things that I'm like, one day when we have the time, I want to get Jen doing these tasks for us too.
Yeah.
And I just haven't got there yet because she's been working for us a while, but it's not been that long.
Right.
So we're still, I feel like every week we're adding in new tasks that she does for me, and she's great. But, so they train overall in like, generally, here's how this process works. And generally, here's the tools that you use on Amazon in general. And then also generally, these are the tools that we use to do the sourcing and scouting methods that you learn in the wholesale formula. So they have like this general knowledge of what these tools are and how to use them. But then as far as like day to day, what does that look like? That's different for everybody's business. And so I had to sit down and think like, okay, so here's what I do on a regular basis when it comes to our wholesale business. Here's what I do when it comes to scouting. And here's what I would like to do, because I can't do everything. But if I had somebody else helping me, these are the things that I want to add into that. And so comprehensively, like going through all of those things that I listed out, then I had to train her. Okay, you already know how to use this specific software, but here's how I want it used in my business, and here's what we're going to do on Tuesdays, or here's what I want you to do on a monthly basis with this tool. It was more like that. So she has this very overarching knowledge of what all's going on, but then I have to tell her specifically, this is what I want done.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you look at like a typical day for doing your Amazon business last year versus a typical day this year after having a VA help us out, like how similar is it? How different is it?
So last year when I was doing all the sourcing and scouting myself, I had a lot of time on tactical arbitrage. I had a lot of time looking at individual product pages on Amazon. I was doing a lot of spreadsheet work myself and following up on scans that I was doing with the software that we use, Tactical Arbitrage and others. And it was a lot of just really mundane, I need to talk myself up to doing this task because it's going to take me a couple of hours, and it's not necessarily the most fun thing there is out there. I like the thrill of finding that treasure to resell, but like sometimes it feels like you're looking for a needle in a haystack. So there was a lot of mundane tasks this time last year, but I also was just very committed to, I want to thoroughly understand what this is before I launch a VA out into doing it all. Plus, last year I also was still in that mindset of, I don't think our business is big enough to use a VA full time. Little did I know.
Mm-hmm.
So this year, I don't spend nearly as much time on tactical arbitrage myself, because Jen is doing all of that scouting, and she's the one going through all the checklists and looking for sellers and competitors that we want to target, and trying to find, like, even what do we want to scan on tactical arbitrage. She knows all of that. She is very organized and keeps, running lists of things that she wants to check on, and she just is able to do all of that at this point, and she maintains a spreadsheet. And so last year too, I was spending a lot of time sending out emails, and then sorting through emails when they came back in, and then responding to those emails. And she does, the bulk of that for me now. She sends out all of the initial, I think we had talked about this quite a bit last time, that like we don't do the call system because I just don't like to be on the phone. And it's just much easier for me to send emails. And especially with having her doing that bulk of the initial contacts, with her, she's in the Philippines. So to have her sending out those initial contacts makes so much more sense. And so she sends out all of that, and then she'll let me know. She updates a spreadsheet with all of the responses and where everything stands on each of the contacts and the leads that we have. And then she will just let me know. She kind of gives me a little report at the end of each workday of what all she's done, and if there's any responses that we've received from brands that need my attention. If it doesn't need my attention, I can always go in and check the spreadsheet and see where things are. But if it doesn't need me to do something, I don't hear about it, and so she keeps me up to date on that. So I am doing a lot more like responding with people who are more, it's beyond that first initial email. Yeah. And I am doing more of the, okay, now we've got an account open, so I'm going to be going through looking at what do we want to sell. And I'm doing more of the making decisions about products and brands than the work that's just kind of mundane and even grueling sometimes of going through lists and lists and lists of items, or lists and lists and lists of brands to contact. I don't know, that was kind of a roundabout way of explaining it all, but I feel like I'm doing more of the decision making now rather than doing all of that. It's not, I want to call it busy work. It's not busy work in that like, oh, there's no point to it, but it is busy work in that like it keeps you really busy and takes a long time to get through it.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jen lives in the Philippines. How do you and her handle the time differences, and how is it actually kind of a perk that there's a bigger time difference between where we are in the United States versus where she is in the Philippines?
So we're kind of in a unique situation with her because one of the perks that a lot of people will talk about with having an overseas VA is that, oh, they're working while you're asleep. The difference is that with Jen, before she started working with us, she was doing a different job where she worked the night shift, and she actually enjoys working the night shift. So we tried it for a while. She was wanting to kind of move back to doing a day shift, so she was working while I was sleeping and vice versa. And so we were able to do that whole thing of like where she's working and then she hands stuff off to me, and then I'm working and I hand stuff off to her. But after a while, she asked like, hey, can I try this out? And I'm like, sure, it will work fine for me, because we're not in any sort of like time sensitive situation where we absolutely have to have somebody working in our business 24 hours a day. It doesn't matter to me what her hours are in general. So she's working now kind of at the same time as I am. So that is a benefit there as far as like now we can really chat a lot more than we were before, as far as my work hours and hers overlap a lot. But in general, I think if you've got a VA overseas, especially like in the Philippines with the time difference, it works out really well where you can give an assignment one day and then go to bed get up the next day, start your day of work, and they're finished with that assignment for you, which that happens quite regularly with her. I'm like, oh, I need this thing done, and could you have it done by in the morning? And she's like, sure, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
I'll prioritize that.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the nitty gritty and the business aspect of getting things done and having someone else do it, and the results from that, and the accounts from that, and the profits from that. But how does it feel? How does it make you feel knowing that someone else is taking care of a lot of it, someone you can trust, and you're seeing things get done?
Yeah, I cannot overstate how nice it has been to have her working for us the last few months. I was so hesitant for so long to have a full-time VA because I was so nervous about, you know, the type of performance that we would get. You know, would I have to like constantly be retraining them, or would I have to be dealing with more work that's being created because of having somebody else? I don't know why I had that mindset for so long, but I mean, I think in some instances that might be the case.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it has ended up being so freeing to have her working with us. And part of it, I think, is that she is just a very unique and amazing individual. And part of it is that just having an assistant in general is just really a great feeling as a business owner. But I cannot speak highly enough of her. She is just amazing. And so there are things that she does. Like, I knew when I hired an assistant that it would free up my time because, you know, she would be taking care of things that I had been doing, and so now I don't have to do it. But it's like even beyond that, the results of handing things over to her. Not only does she do the things so that I don't have to do them, but she does them better than I do. And I'm not just saying that. Like, she is much better at scouting than I am. She spends more time on it. You know, she's doing it full time. I was not scouting full time, and so I was getting those part-time results, which were still great. I was still happy with it, but now she is scouting full time. So not only has it taken away that task from me, but she's also doing it better. So I feel like we're getting just exponentially more leads than when I was doing it myself. And she is truly an assistant in a way that I just wasn't expecting. She is one of those people who just goes above and beyond, I feel like, as far as what she does on a daily basis. She just, without my even asking her, has developed systems within our business to be more organized. She's very detail oriented and very in tune with like what would be more efficient and what would make things easier. And so she's always looking to like tweak things so that it runs more smoothly. She, like I said, she gives me a rundown every day of what she's done. And in addition to what she's done, she also tells me what I need to do the next day, which sounds a little bit like, what? She's working for me, not vice versa. But that's what an assistant does, is keeps track of, okay, boss, here's what you needed to be remembering. And I needed that. I am a very detail-oriented person, too. I'm very scheduled, love to plan, love a good list. And so I thought, you know, I've got it under control. But when she started sending me lists, unsolicited, started sending me lists of here are the things you need to not forget and here are the things you need to take care of, I thought, wow, I have met my assistant soulmate right here, because she knows my love language. And yeah, so I get lists from her from time to time of like, hey, here's some things that you've kind of like let slide. What do you want to do about that? Is this something that, you know, we can just kind of push aside, or is this something you need to work on? And I then can tell her, you know, oh, thanks for the reminder. I'm going to take care of that. And I love it. It's really great to have somebody give me a to-do list. And it's not like she's trying to push off her work on me. She knows what my work is, and she knows when I get behind on it, and just kind of gives me that little nudge of like, hey, you didn't respond to this person and they emailed us again. You might want to follow up on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So the last question, unless I think of another one, if anyone's on the fence about trying a VA, you know, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that it doesn't hurt to try it out for a trial period for a limited number of hours. That is actually how I got started with Jen. was I looked at VA placement has kind of some parameters around when they place somebody with you, like the hours that you need to be willing to commit to and everything. And I can't remember exactly, but I think that they go as low as 5 or 10 hours per week that they'll match you with somebody to do that amount of work for you. So that's, half a day or a day's worth of day and a half of work right there. And honestly, if you were doing wholesale or even online arbitrage sourcing, any of us could use that amount of help per week. And so start out low. And like in the interview process, when I first started working with Jen, I can't remember what I told her I wanted a full-time VA, but I didn't tell her 40 hours a week at first. I can't remember if I said 25 or 30 hours.
I think you said 30.
Was it 30?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I told her, like, I need somebody for about 30 hours a week. So I was like, 40 sounds like a lot. And so I hired her at 30 hours a week. And just to kind of get an idea. And after, I think the first month, I asked her, hey, are you available for 40 hours? What would you think about working 40 hours? And she's like, yeah, if you need that, I can do that. And so I bumped up her hours so that she was working that amount. You can't go over 40 hours. But, yeah, I would say think through what are the things that you need help with? What are the things that you're not doing a good job of? Because that was a big deal for me. I knew that, like, somebody else could do a much better job of this scouting on a regular basis. Not because I'm not smart enough or capable enough to do it, but just because I had other things going on and I just wasn't able to sit down and spend that time on it. Think through those things. Think about, like, how many hours do I think that would take? Don't think about, can I afford this? But think about, can I afford not to do this right now? And that was kind of where I was. We were in a place where we were like, this is not a matter of, can I afford somebody full time? That was never the question. The question to me always was, do I have enough work for them? Yeah. And once I realized, oh yeah, I have enough work, the question definitely is, how can I afford not to do this? Our business is just going to grow so much more. And not just grow, it's not all about just growing, uncontrollably, but it's about just maintaining our business at the current level it is with some growth, as well as maintaining my sanity.
Yeah.
So come up with an amount of hours that you think is a conservative amount to hire somebody for, and just give yourself a trial period to see how it goes. And I can almost guarantee you are going to regret not doing it sooner, because I sure do. I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I would have hired her a year ago. But lesson learned.
Yeah, you think through all the things that you'd like to get done that the VA can do, and you'll probably experience like Rebecca did, realizing, oh, there's more things that they could do. And, the game of wholesale sourcing is it's a numbers game.
Yes.
There's a lot of rejection.
Yes.
And, sometimes we can take it personally if we get rejected from these wholesale businesses. And so if a VA is taking care of a lot of that, they're just doing their job, sending out the messages.
Yeah.
And all we get is the emails of, hey, this person's on board. And it helps us have the motivation to continue growing our wholesale business.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's really good, because I hadn't verbalized that to myself, that, yeah, part of my hang up with even doing wholesale sourcing over the last few years has always been like, oh, I don't think I can handle that personal interaction. I really like interacting with, just a shopping cart online. I don't want to interact with a human, because there is that personal aspect of, like, some of it's imposter syndrome, some of it's fear of rejection, but that definitely takes it out of it. For one thing, a lot of the imposter syndrome has gone away, because now I have an assistant.
Yeah.
I'm a business owner with an assistant. And, too, the rejection part of it is definitely taken. It's still there, but it's like there's an extra layer in between it and me.
Yeah. So we'll come back again in the future with another part for this video series, just kind of checking in on Rebecca and how she's doing with her wholesale formula learning and implementation. I have 2 links for you. If you're interested in looking into a VA and seeing if that's right for you, you can go to fulltimefba.com/VA placement, and that will forward you to either a VA placement or a wait list for when VA placement opens. And if you're wanting to learn how to do the wholesale formula method, which is what started this whole thing, go to fulltimefba.com/wholesale formula. that will either lead you to the wholesale formula, which is open for a short time, or it will lead you to a wait list where you can sign up when the doors for the wholesale formula open. So check out those two opportunities for you to learn wholesale sourcing and look into hiring a VA, which will revolutionize your Amazon business. Well, that's it for this video. We'll see you again in the next part someday in the future. We don't know when that's going to be, but when there's more stuff that happens, we'll come back and add on to this. Thank you for joining me and answering my questions. And we appreciate your story.
Glad to. Hope it helps somebody.
Yep, and we'll see you on the next video.